Greetings, everyone. Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another of our concert reviews. That's right, I was out last night in Tarrytown, New York, at the Tarrytown Music Hall to see Steve Hackett. Of course, he and the band are busy touring Genesis Revisited Live, Seconds Out, and more. This basically is the CD Blu-ray that came out fairly recently, right? Recorded in the UK, and he has finally made it back here to the US. He's been doing a selection of dates, and there's a bunch more that are coming. This particular one, of course, was December 7th, 2022, at the wonderful little. I love these old style theaters. That's at my age, with seeing so many concerts in so many types of venues, big and small. At this point in my life, when I go to see a show, the ones I really enjoy are the ones in the little more intimate, like old school theaters. You have, we'll get into the comfortable seat thing, but where you have, comfortable seats, hopefully, and it looks like an old, like not ballroom, but the old style theaters, right, with the big ceilings and just the wonderful architecture and lots of history and that sort of thing. And generally speaking, most of these places seat like 2,000 or less. I'm not quite sure how many Tarrytown fits. I'm assuming it's probably somewhere in the 1,500 to 2,000 range, something like that. But it's intimate, and that's kind of what I like. And that's where it was last night. So, show started at 8 o'clock, right off the bat. Like 8:01, I think they were already out and playing, so which is kind of neat. And Steve and the band did roughly there was a 20-minute intermission. Basically, if you're not familiar with this tour, with this Genesis Revisited Live, Seconds Out and More tour, they open up and they do a short little set of Steve Hackett solo tracks, generally speaking, a half hour to 40 minutes. Okay, and then a 20-minute intermission. Then at 9 o'clock, they come back out and they play roughly about 90 minutes, give or take a little bit longer than 90 minutes actually, and play the entire Seconds Out album. Okay, from Genesis, one of the great live albums of the 70s, and perhaps Genesis's tour de force live album. So they came out. So the bands. All right. So one little interesting surprise, which I guess I haven't been reading up, so maybe I didn't realize this, but you got Steve, of course, on guitars and vocals. You got Roger King on keyboards, Nad Sylvan on vocals. You've got Rob Townsend on sax and flute and keyboards and bass pedals, and Jonas Reingold on bass guitar, 12-string guitar, and a little bit of 6-string electric as well. And on drums, because Craig Blundell was not on this part of the U.S. tour, Nick DiVigilio on drums. I was like, they came out for the first song. I'm like, wait a second, is that Nick? It certainly is. Nick, of course, formerly with Spock's Beard, and been manning the drum kit for Big Big Train now for a number of years. And really cool to see him up there. And I think what I really enjoyed, I know what a big Genesis fan he is, and he probably grew up, just like we all did, on this music, and he just seemed to be having the time of his life up there, and his playing was spectacular. He's a great drummer. He fit right in, as if he's been playing with them for years, and we know Nick is a really good singer as well, and he was up there, singing to himself the whole time. I'm sure he knows all the words to all these songs. It was very, very cool. So we got in the first set, okay, the solo set, a little bit different. I expected pretty much the exact same set, song for song, as what we have on here on this Blu-ray from the UK, and it was not actually. So they came out and they played Ace of Wands. This is the solo song set. Ace of Wands, The Devil's Cathedral, A Tower Struck Down, an amazing Jonas Reingold bass solo. Incredible. Guy's so good. And then, for me, what was the highlight of the first set, of the solo set, was Shadow of the Hierophant, which was just absolutely intense. I love the dramatic slow build of the finale of that song is just so moving. And even though it's very repetitive, and it's the same notes kind of over and over and over again for 3, 4, 5 minutes, just the intensity that keeps building, and Nick's drumming on it was just absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And great to hear Ace of Wands, and the Devil's Cathedral was fantastic. Really, really good opening first set. Of course, then they go and take the break, and then from here, nothing really surprising, because if you know the Seconds Out album really well, as I do, the order that everything's going to come. So you got Squonk, You got the Carpet Crawlers, all these great Genesis classics, Robbery, Assault, and Battery, Afterglow. Afterglow was, as much as I love the faster stuff and the more intricate and proggy stuff, and I do, man, hearing songs like the Carpet Crawlers and Afterglow live, excuse me, is just so amazing. And I wasn't quite old enough to see Genesis back in the 70s to hear the stuff first time around. So whatever little nuggets I got when Genesis did their reunion tour in 2007 wasn't a lot from the old days. That's really all I've had until I've been seeing Steve Hackett live in more recent years. So of course Steve has been, bringing out a lot of the Genesis classics. So I've had the opportunity to see him a few times playing some of these songs, but not all of these songs. So this was really, really cool. So I'll continue. So Afterglow, stunning. Nat Sylvan, what a great job. What a great job. He's just, he's got the voice for this, and he really knocked it out of the park on Afterglow. Just such a stunning song. Firth of Fifth, obviously, epic. That guitar solo, mind-blowing. You had I Know What You Like in Your Wardrobe, which was a lot of fun. Then you got The Land Lies Down on Broadway, and then a shortened The Musical Box. Of course, everything exactly as is on the live Seconds Out album, so it's basically the second half of the Musical Box song. Of course, then the big epic Supper's Ready, mind-blowingly good. Then Cinema Show, Isle of Plenty, and then, of course, the encore, Dance on a Volcano and Los Endos. What more can you say about that encore, right? Just amazing. Again, Nick totally shining on the drums, and the whole band just really killing it. Great keyboards throughout. Love the inclusion of Townsend's like sax and flute, right? Because there were certain songs where you would, in the old days, there would be like a keyboard solo, there'd be a sax solo. So he had a little jazzy touches throughout some of these tracks, which was kind of neat. Steve is amazing. He's just amazing. I mean, this whole band is amazing, but Steve at 70-something years old, he just keeps getting better. His guitar skills are just off the charts good, and is as good as I always thought he was in Genesis. He is such a better player today. I mean, just amazing. All the little things he does, adds all these little fills, these blazing fast runs. I mean, he's just technically so sound. The tone is amazing. All these little tricks and things he does. He does all the did a lot of tapping last night. A lot of things running up and down the fretboard and scrapes and all sorts of stuff. Using effects very, very wisely. Just a great show. Really, really great show. I'm a big Seconds Out fan. It's the first Genesis album I ever bought, and just amazing stuff. And great theater. Sound was impeccable. I mean, I generally, in my older age, I wear earplugs at concerts just because I've had the ringing in the ears for a couple of years now, and I don't want it to get any worse. So I generally, when I go to a show, I wear earplugs. I did not need them at this show. It was not loud at all. It was just perfect. And I really appreciated that. What I didn't appreciate, however, here's my little mini rant. So I did not even know he was playing locally to me. Tarrytown's like just under an hour away. And so I didn't find out about the show till 2 or 3 weeks ago, if that. And so I went to go look up tickets, and there was hardly anything left. And there were like maybe a handful of tickets left that weren't the real. I wasn't interested in paying the really expensive tickets. There were some stuff down in the front orchestra, but those were like $100+ I was like, I don't need to do that. So there were a couple seats left up in the balcony, so I bought one. And I was like, all right, whatever, it's on the right side. Where I was sitting was fine. Anywhere in this place you sit, you can see fine. But man, some of these old style theaters, especially up in the balcony areas, it's like when these buildings were put together and built, and they were designing the seats up in the balcony. I guess the thought process was, well, let's fit as many people up there as possible, and let's maximize the space, right? Well, these seats were like built for someone who is probably like 5'2" max. I'm not a tall guy. I'm only 5'8.5", 5'9", and I don't have long legs at all. And the entire time I was sitting here, scrunched up in my seat with my knees flat up against the seat in front of me, to the point where it was quite uncomfortable. And there were guys sitting next to me who were, 6 foot tall and above, and they're sitting sideways like this, and it was warm up there because it was a little warmer outside, and we're all scrunched up in there, and the entire balcony area appeared to be sold out, and it looked like the show was either sold out or close to it, because I walked on the side at one point and looked down, and there weren't many empty seats down below right in front of the stage. But man, imagine sitting for a 2.5 hour concert basically like this. Kind of you have to sit sideways because the seats are rounded in the back, so there's that little where the seats meet, there's like this little section. That's where I had to put one of my knees, so I had a little bit of room, and then the other one was flush up against the seat in front of me, and you couldn't really move. And so the entire show was like that. So note to self, if I go to a show in Tarrytown, at the Tarrytown Music Hall again, I will not be sitting up there, because all the other times I've been to this venue, I've sat downstairs, very comfortable. So, which leads me to believe, because I don't normally get seats up top for some of these shows in places like this. And there's a lot of these type of theaters around. There's the Paramount in Peekskill. I always sit down below. There's the Palace Theater up in Albany. These are all very similar venues. I always sit down below, and they're very comfortable. So, but it brings to mind something that Craig Kaminsky told me about the venue, the theater in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania, where we do the 24-hour horathon every year. And he always says that, you don't want to sit up in the balcony because the seats are really, really tight up there. So now I know exactly what he's talking about. I think that's what they did back in the day, 50 years ago or whatever, when they created some of these theaters 50 plus years ago. It's like, we'll down below, we'll charge more money for those seats. You get a little bit more room, but we're going to squeeze as many people up top as we possibly can. We'll charge a little bit less, but it's not going to be as comfortable. And yeah, that indeed was the case last night. So, but anyway, spectacular show. My little rant about the seats notwithstanding. So if you do get a chance to go see Steve Hackett and his band on this tour, I highly recommend it. I know a lot of people that I'm friends with who are into Genesis and Hackett. They try to catch him every time he comes around. I haven't been as diligent of doing that. I have seen him a few times in recent years, but he's a guy you could see every year and just be mesmerized by the band, the songs they play. I mean, he picks the right amount of solo stuff, and then he does all the Genesis classics, and just unbelievable. And the crowd last night, again, hardcore Genesis fans. Everybody, people around me singing every lyric to every song, and these were old school fans. I'm going to be 57 in a couple weeks, and a lot of shows I go to, I feel like I'm the elder statesman at. I was probably one of the youngest people in attendance, it seemed, last night. These were people who've been listening to Genesis since the early 70s, right? They're to me, basically looking around, it seemed like the average age was probably like 65 to 75 at last night's show, was what it seemed to me. And that's good to see, because I'm glad to see people of all ages going out to see concerts, and which is really cool. So yeah, a fun time, a really fun time, and everybody seemed to really enjoy themselves. Standing ovations, and just wonderful. So yeah, that's it. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, all together, all the damn time. If you can't get out to see Steve on this tour, I highly recommend this CD. Blu-ray or CD, Blu-ray set. I think it's also available on DVD. Genesis Revisit Live, Seconds Out and More. Pretty much what he's doing. Again, a couple changes in the solo set, solo song set, but for otherwise everything was exactly the same. And we'll see you real soon here with more stuff. Thanks for watching. Tune into the Monsters Den tonight. Take care. Bye-bye.